This is Keith Overman with a special sports investigation involving the O.P. Miller Lite softball team from Great Falls, Montana. This team has been investigated for over the last 12 years, and we have found that it is a very nefarious team. This team can only be considered a team that is made up of both the good, the bad, and the ugly. We begin with recordings we obtained in 2002 when Alexander and Forsman drank from 10 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock in the early morning hours of the next day. Alexander, of Scottish blood, had this recorded message.
Ah, you're a lad, Harry. Good old Glasgow. And what about Edinburgh and Greenock?
Oh, well, I'll tell you, I'm very glad to see everyone here. I tell you, we're going to have a great next one. And before we go, we won't need to forget to have a wee joch and Doris. There's a wee wifey waiting and a wee button bane. If you can say it's a Brobrecht moonlight next, will you all right? You can.
There's an 1865 federal law that states that you cannot transport a Native American across state lines for the purposes of sex. Attorney for the OP team has stated repeatedly that it was impossible for Gary Forsman to have violated that law in 2002 because he was just too drunk to do anything. Unfortunately, we have the evidence against him. Here are early morning recordings of conversations between Gary Forsman and his Native American wife, Doreen Forsman.
Let's get it on. Come a little closer. Let me whisper in your ear. Let's get it on.
Doreen's response.
Do me one more time. Once is never enough with a man like you. Oh, do that to me one more time. I can never get enough.
Our investigation reveals that this man, Robbie Saska, was using a van to transport beer into Utah, which is a total violation of Utah law. We have asked Robbie to try and explain himself, and this is what he had to say.
I'm pretty good at drinking beer. I'm not the type to work in a bank. I'm no good at slapping on paint. Don't have a knack for making motors crank, no, but I'm pretty good at drinking beer.
When asked whether beer was responsible for his large size, this is what he had to say.
Well, I like bread and butter. I like toast and jam.
Robbie's wife, Joni, is also a known lawbreaker, having been arrested and jailed by the city of Great Falls. When Joni was asked to explain the circumstances, this is what she stated.
I'm on the low end, low. I'm on the low end, low.
She obviously needed a good lawyer. Speaking of lawyers, attorney Tom Bays out of Great Falls has been investigated by the FBI for selling jewelry on the black market to Asian countries. His source is Tennis Toe Chung, a kingpin in the Asian black market. ESPN News has obtained the initial recording from the FBI of Tom Bays approaching Tennis Toe Chung about his black market activity.
Don't know what you've done to me, but I know this much is true. I wanna do bad things with you. I wanna do real bad things with you.
This man, Al Paez, looks innocent, but he is suspected of being a cartel member running drugs from Mexico through Mesquite to Washington. When questioned by the FBI, his response was,
Suspicion torments my heart. Suspicion, suspicion, why torture me?
when Al's wife, Karen, was asked whether or not he could avoid jail by our ESPN roving reporter, she responded,
wishing and hoping and thinking and praying.
while there has been questionable misconduct by several members of the OP Miller Lite team, this team has also had some very ugly events that have occurred over the years. In 2009, according to an unidentified source, third baseman John Alexander made a diving catch to save the game, and he, in the process, punctured a lung. The next morning, one of his teammates asked whether or not he could play, and Alexander's response was,
I woke up this morning, you were on my mind, and you were on my mind. I got troubles, oh, I got worries, oh, I got wounds to bind.
In 2012, another ugly event occurred when George Geist made the catch of his life and then promptly fell flat on his face with a heart attack. His shocked wife yelled from the stands,
I shall never breathe again, breathe again.
At the time George went down, he was thinking,
Don't let the sun go down on me.
after a miraculous recovery, George said,
Ooh, what a lucky man he was. Ooh, what a lucky man he was.
Our ESPN reporter asked George why he was returning in 2013, and his response was,
I'll get knocked down, but I'll get up again. You can never gonna keep me down. I'll get knocked down, but I'll get up again.
while Paperboy Geist had the major health problem in 2012, Wayne Bradley from North Dakota also had a problem when he got disoriented trying to go from North Dakota to Missoula, and he ended up in the small town of Big Timber, Montana. During our investigation of the team, ESPN was able to obtain a telephone recording of Jerry Sepich attempting to be a good Samaritan by calling Wayne and attempting to get him to Missoula safely.
Don't pay no mind to the demons, they fill you with fear. The trouble it might drag you down. If you get lost, you can always be found. Just know you're not alone.
In 2013, ugly injuries occurred again when Huggy Hendrickson tore his Achilles tendon. We were not able to interview Huggy, but we were able to interview his teenage grandson and asked him what he thought of his grandpa as a softball pitcher.
One by one, the battles would come to face that giant of a man. Round and round, he had to wind up slow. Grandpa played softball, caught a lot of folks off guard.
ESPN reporters were in Missoula this summer to watch the championship game in which this man, Denny Vandenberg, had a very off day pitching and managed to walk in 9 runs, and the team lost in the bottom of the 7th by 1 run. Wayne Bradley did not help matters when he started yelling at Denny from center field to get the ball across the plate. Our reporter asked whether or not, in retrospect, this was a very good idea, and he responded,
Maybe the bad, bad thing. Maybe the bad, bad thing. Maybe the bad, bad thing. I feel like crying. Feel like crying.
While the other pitchers that went to the mound that day did no better, Denny understandably felt bad and felt that he let the team down, but assistant coach Ron Reichelt attempted to console him by telling Denny,
well, before you do anything rash, baby, listen to this. Everybody plays the fool sometimes. There's no exception to the rule.
Denny told the captain he may not go to St. George by saying,
Every now and then I fall apart. Every now and then I fall apart.
He also said,
Give me one reason to stay here, and I'll turn right back around.
And the captain said,
Follow me, everything is alright. I'll be the one to tuck you in at night. And if you want to leave, I can guarantee you won't find nobody else like me.
This is Keith Oberman. I am now down in St. George, Utah, and will be following the OP Miller Lite team. I see Gary Forsman now giving a pep talk to his team. Let's listen in.
Now you better listen to me, every one of you. We've got a lot of work to do. Forget about your women and that water can. Today you're working for the man.
This is Keith Oberman. I have been informed by team members that this team operates under certain man laws. These man laws must be complied with at all times. I'm recording that someone has seen a violation of the man laws.
Who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out?
I've had a chance to interview some of the players before the championship game. This is Gary Bowers. Gary, you're from St. Louis. Why is it that you're playing for a team in Great Falls, Montana?
I go through life without a care, and I'm as happy as a clown. I'm with my 2 fists divine, but I'm going nowhere. Oh yeah, I'm the type of guy that likes to roam around. I'm never in one place.
Gary, how do you feel about playing in this championship game with the OP Miller Lite team?
I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it. I'm about to lose control, and I think I like it. I'm so excited.
I'm here with star shortstop Artie Grew, and I understand he's won the Pigpen Award several years running. Why is that?
Let's get dirty, sling a little mud, 300 horses underneath my hood. Let's get dirty.
Ron Reichelt, how has it been playing for this team all of these years? This is Bill Walters. There has been some tongue-in-cheek talk about you being a little feminine. What are you going to do to turn that concept around?
Walk like a man, talk like a man.
Do you think you can turn that perception around?
Answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
I have Mike Mansell here. I understand you like to drive fast cars, ski behind a fast boat, and will even play softball with a broken finger. How do you account for this type of attitude?
Born to be wild. Born to be wild.
We're in the middle of the championship game, but we have the oldest man on the team, Brian Laux, and I wanted to ask him how things are going for him during the game so far.
The pitcher looked like he was 70 years old. The softball sure looked fat. I gave a mighty studly swing and I heard my teammates shout. Or maybe they were just laughing because, well, I struck out. Well, the next time up I hit the ball that the fielders couldn't catch. Before the game I told the coach, I don't need to stretch. Running down to first base, both my thighs went pop. The coach said, go for second. I said, no thanks. I think I'll stop. And I started singing. We're the over 50 softball team, got braces on our knees. Our joints all need replacing. Pass the Advil, please.
We've just witnessed Jerry Sepich hitting a grand slam home run to win the gold for the OP Miller Lite team. He's now talking to his opposing player. Let's listen in to what the opposing player has to say.
You dropped the bomb on me, baby. You dropped the bomb on me.
But you turn me on.
You dropped the bomb on me, baby.
This is Keith Overman reporting that this team may be bad, it may be ugly, but it is one hell of a good softball team. They're celebrating in the parking lot. Let's listen in.
I throw my hands up in the air sometimes, saying, ayo, gotta let go. I wanna celebrate and live my life, saying, ayo, baby, let's go. Cause we gon' rock this club, we gon' go all night, we gon' light it up like it's dynamite. The sun goes down, the stars come out, and all that counts is here and now. My universe will never be the same. I'm glad you came.
This has been a King Ralph production. To one of the team's biggest fans and supporter, dedicated to my brother, Big Sky Bry. Special thanks to my son Noel, who guided me through this process.